monsoon season in San Francisco. There was a guy in here earlier who was really worried his flight was going to get canceled because the weather was so terrible. It's like, jeez. But you braved it. You braved the blizzards, the tornadoes. I think there was an earthquake earlier, and like half the city nearly fell down. But you made it, and I'm happy you're here because I'm really excited to see a suddenly very dark room. Um, and somewhere back there, there's a poet named Sarah Menefee, who's the main cause of this gathering. This is the first day this book is available. There you are. I don't think I'll say much about it other than that it's lovely, as you can see. And the poems inside are lovely, as you will soon hear if you haven't already read. Patrick Dunagan is also joining us. I haven't done introductions for a poetry reading in a really long time. And I realized sitting at the bar earlier when I got there really early to try to come up with good introductions that it's not about the introductions. It's about the poets and their poems. So it's fine that I have nothing to say. I will say just a couple things. So set a timer, and when half an hour goes by, let me know. No, really. Sarah, you all know Sarah, so I don't have to say too much, but she's the poet. One of the two poets. She really is the poet, though. She's probably the most self-effacing poet I've ever met, which some poets pretend to be self-effacing, and they're like, oh gosh, oh thank you. But Sarah really is kind of ridiculously self-effacing. She's an incredible poet, an incredible person who's been here since, I think, came from Reno in, I want to say, 78 or so. 20 years later, Patrick Dunagan showed up. I was born somewhere in that gap here in the city. I won't specify exactly where. And, so when Sarah got here, she explored the poetry scene. She came here to be a poet. And she hooked up with New College, got to know some poets there, hooked up with the North Beach poetry crowd, got to know a lot of poets there, and has been doing a lot of wonderful political work ever since. And the poems keep pouring out. So it's really great to have this little chapbook. I had to ask her like maybe 4 or 5 times before she took me seriously. Granted, I did it in passing most of the time. I was like, come on, let's do a chapbook. Then finally I pushed her, and she sent me this great little manuscript. So I think this is number 20 that we've done here. We did one of Patrick's a few years ago, despite his initial trepidation about our publishing enterprise.
That was just the magazine.
Well, that was the beginning of things, the magazine. So, he refused to submit poems to the first magazine because he didn't trust that we could do anything worth submitting to. He quickly changed his tune and became very resentful that I wasn't publishing him in every single magazine that I did. But we did a chapbook of his a few years ago. He's got a book from City Lights coming out later this year, right? City Bird over here. So I'm going to leave it at that. Patrick's going to open things up. He's going to probably say some nice things about Sarah. And then he'll read some poems. And then Sarah will come up, and I won't have to come up here again until the end when I try to make you buy the book. If you haven't already. $10. Look at that. Patrick Marks, bookseller extraordinaire, book purchaser extraordinaire. Follow in his footsteps. And now, Patrick James Dunagan.
Hi, so is this okay if I stand about here? Okay, all right, great. The, down? Okay. Was I too loud? I could stand back.
You're just not as tall as me.
I know. I was getting on my tippy toes. Okay. So how's this?
Aesthetically much better.
Okay. So if I stand just like here is good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. All right. Everyone's happy? All right. So thank everybody, you're all for coming out. It's great. Thank you, Sarah, for asking me. It's really wonderful to get to do this, and because we all adore Sarah and her work. And when I say we, I just mean everyone I know that's a poet and that's a pal. We all have appreciated Sarah for a number of years, ever since we've known of her and her work. Okay, so I won't say too much more. I'll just read some stuff. So I was going through, I didn't know what to read, and then I came across a manuscript, and then I realized I was going to read it, but then I realized I read it already, some of it, over in the Mission, like a year or two ago. But then I liked the epigraphs, so I was going to read the epigraphs. This first one's from Nick. Feral for Real. This next one is from Jack Hirschman. Oh, Street Heart. And then just Keats, because we all need classics. Love poured her beauty into my warm veins. And those are for Sarah, too, because I think that sets her up really well. I thought maybe I should read them at the end, but I didn't. But maybe I'll read them after I read my own work. I'll read them again as it is, because I think we're just going to pass off. And I'll try not to read too much. Duncan on Browning's ghosts. Lawrence on Whitman's anger. Stein dancing with Loy. Pollock napping between paintings. Stalin as capitalist. Corso's dialogues as Rilkean angel. Homer teaching Dickinson's script. Milton yelling up from below. Marx's marriage to Eliot. Kiger as Creeley's tiger. Hopkins taught Blackburn spacing. Eigner riding the roan stallion. California through Berrigan's tears. Bunting punching out Kleinshauer. Shakespeare ordering Szechuan. Ginsberg failing Snyder's quiz. Lowell all over the place, always. Tu Fu pirating under Young's harvest moon. Sappho bringing Yeats to tears. Shelley at the monster's neck. You don't need to applaud between them all. We just want to get through them. Thank you, though. And this is a Balanchine in Love. He was a choreographer, dance choreographer. And there was a recent biography that came out, and I was reading the review. And so then I pulled some lines that they quoted, and then I wrote this poem. And it seems like he wasn't really a very good-hearted lover. Balanchine in Love, and this is the quote from the biographer. An instinct for his own genius and loss, an unattainable or unrequited love seemed to stand at its heart. We find what we need, run to the wild safety of another's arms, over the will, even the desire. Bound to suffer for pleasure, we hire again. Build up our demands, discuss what dreams we'll surrender, bathing in delights. We insist, this time again forever, will be the one only. Saving ourselves, we burn out each flame anew as the years rush us and the love multiplies. Past thunderous applause, only eyes and hands, bodies aligned, mistaken, acts to fossilize us, lest we escape again into the next romance, to know only joy always. And these are mainly newish poems. The poet Joe Safdie, up in Portland now, recommended that I read this piece. It's a poem, kind of a thing for Kent Johnson, who is a poet who recently passed away. And there's a book that just came out of pieces called I Once Met Kent Johnson, because Kent did a book called I Once Met, and then he wrote these like sort of semi-autobiographical, but also not necessarily outside of being written, factually accurate statements of having once met various poet world folk. And so this is my take on that. I never was actually physically with Kent, but we exchanged emails and books. And then what I really appreciated was his sense that If it's a poem, it's real. He got in a lot of trouble in poetry world for doing things that people thought you shouldn't do, but you can do anything you want in poetry world, and I think Kent's great as an example of doing anything you want and reproducing the real as you do it. So this is, I once met Kent Johnson aboard the poetry ship. He called himself Bachelorette Prince Poetess forever. Everybody seemed interested in his bags. Strolling the upper deck promenade, he'd periodically rummage around for a while until suddenly pulling out a book, emphatically booming, "Here is the latest great work of poetry ever." Kent often seemed to have his hand in everybody's trousers. Nobody minded. Who wouldn't want Bachelorette Poetess Forever's hands in their trousers? Every other sentence, he'd slip into Spanish, sheepishly grinning to himself. Kent was fluent, having spent time with his family in South America. He refused to wear shoes, declaring that the toes of poets must be left exposed. "Shoes are for those with something to hide," he'd intone. "Poets bear everything. Nothing must be hidden." Aboard the poetry ship, nearly everybody wore shoes like all the time, even during the nightly midnight skinny dip in the pool. Cutting an impeccable figure, Kent was unlike anyone else aboard the poetry ship. He brought to mind what it might have been like to watch Frank O'Hara stroll along in Manhattan, or John Donne's casual hustle over to the Mermaid Tavern. His conversation was an endless, untangable extrapolation upon what it means to live in poetry, a swirl with fictional truths of factual fiction. Not one bit of it which was ever not true. He never told a lie. Being aboard the poetry ship with Kent Johnson, that was the most spectacular week of my life. This is this is just a really short piece. The title is from Julien Poirier, one of his little messages he sends out into the world. "Greetings from White Manistan. How you doing? I'm here to kill the cow." This is in college, I took a class on terrorism from this guy, Paul Dahm, who I thought was an interesting character. This is Terrorism 101 for Paul Dahm. "Given you'd rather live where you live and have the life you enjoy and know best, refusal simply is not an option when surprised one day at the lagoon surrounded by imperial forces, as though it were their home you had come to make your own. As although you'd sooner pass when handed over, you shoulder the rifle without option, no problem." So this is Bob Glick is a local, pretty well-known guy, and he just got interviewed in the Paris Review. And so this is from that interview. Basically, everything is from that interview. It's titled "This is the Sound," and this is a quote: "Beat your voice with a tire chain, you still can't get rid of it. It's Dad who wants to murder the son. First, break my heart. These people were dear to me. A wonderful girlfriend, vivid, one of the greatest readers, loose and affectionate. Recognize it as collaborative, porous. You have to put something into a community for it to exist. Mother hadn't liked it. He volunteered to me. We all speak and write and move the way we do. Those kids who head straight into the ocean or traffic, 81 or 82, 10 minutes before HIV. I was Lorca, Rimbaud, D.H. Lawrence, Genet. A feeling of accuracy or justice. That's richly satisfying. Father's father gathered rags and scrap metal. Rescued by the hippies, I would be a Chaucerian. banish narrative and the self from writing, asparagus at fancy dinners with soft-boiled eggs, write a novel in 4 pages. Does it matter what I feel when I write? Like writing War and Peace, I sat alone in the hall and read Great Expectations. I couldn't make that my life. Grew up in a noisy family, getting blown and fucked at the same time. Basically 3 people, 10 at most. How reading became a part of writing, the vernacular rose of San Francisco. I expect to feel everything that I can feel, a very hot, very psychedelic, and not particularly saintly romance. That thing where you just tell every single person you see. Ideally, a writer is the person in the community who tells the community its story. A brush with greatness, right? Why not listen to TED? People form reading groups, they socialize, they sleep together. What writing can do, which is to render melancholy that reads like autobiography. This is On Time and Rosemary Waldrop. Rosemary Waldrop's latest book is entitled The Nick of Time. What does Nick think? I call him to ask. He says that he emphatically is not the Nick of Time. I must be mistaken. Or is it Rosemary Waldrop who is mistaken? Perhaps it's actually Nick who is mistaken. That is to say, how would he know whether or not Rosemary Waldrop had him, Nicholas James Whittington, in mind with her title? Only time will tell. I'm willing to wait it out. It's okay. You know, that's one for the house. So this is just my version of a Verlaine. So it's after Verlaine. Paul Verlaine is a French guy. Well, he is. Okay. Yeah. Long sobs of violin forever throb my heart's tired monotone, pale suffocate, remembering hours, memory leaps, wandering, I weep, and let myself go here or there, just another dead leaf. Okay, we're reaching the end. This one might be a little difficult, but I'm gonna go for it. So this is another one where I'm reading things and grabbing lines. Alice is a great fucking poet. It should be stated, we have no official position. How little we understand at the outset. Happy with anyone excited to be sitting in. Hard to see anything other than was in front of us. We say, wow, getting ourselves going, in a mood to throw everything out. One has the feeling of living somewhere. The California sunlight and Maine winters, out there and brilliant corners, blooms and heads, muttered, remembered, recited, scratched out. How we just show up. Miscellany as opposite to continuity. It's the most convenient place. Complete the picture of personal connection. Really at home, whether you like it or not, baby. And this is the last thing I'll read. I think it's kind of the last thing I wrote. It's all, it's like a O'Hara kind of thing. What are we living for? Meditative day awaiting new Godzilla. Reflecting on Napoleon and IMAX. Ava flying out to Tehran. Israeli massacre and suspended disarray. Workday doldrums lolling through the hours. Splendid sky about after overnight rain. Another crowded bus, few times since pandemic. Tasty leftover cheeseburger for breakfast. Bleaching ants in the kitchen over discovered honey. Momentous contents of early issues of Axe. Micah's first LP purchases of Working 9 to 5 and Thriller. The animal heart heard everywhere and everything. against failure's lot, desperate to hoard and conceal, not one thing or another, the whole, well heard. Thank you very much. So Sarah, you should come on up.
I'm definitely shorter than everyone.
I'll come lift you up.
Oh, ooh, okay.
I can put you on my shoulder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's all a circus act, you know. Thank you for coming. Very moved by this beautiful book. My memory is that I got asked once and I jumped right on it. And I was so happy. This is so beautiful. And, you know, I gave Nick a manuscript of basically what I was writing right then, that last week and a half, yeah, when I was re-falling in love with somebody. So it's pretty sappy. So I'm going to read a few from the book and then a few other things. Let's see what we have here. And I won't do titles. I put a complete piece of myself into you, said God, love, so you could find and use it out in the world. As below, so above. Nothing changes. That's a great secret. I don't need to tell you. You don't need to know. Sooner or later, we'll meet and go walking up streets we already remember again. As he said, this war, nothing is ever fair here or there, nor this frail joy. It's exactly the same, is it? It's exactly the same, isn't it? Oh, yes, exactly. Heaven and hell's despite. What did he mean? I'm way off what I planned here. Can't find anything. Poems can't help it. They're stuck with words. The night won't let me sleep. I turn your words over and over in the night. An old man next to me takes out a round can of snuff and has a pinch of it. It's like being home again after all this lost time, and so does falling in love again. Yeah, I know, an absurd metaphor, or whatever this is. Does it fade as the days go by as roses do? I don't know. Ask the lovers what they know, as if they ever knew. We go by in innocent vanity. We go by through the light. What do such obedient thighs think of our fugitive desires as they carry us through the fires? In the public hubbub, I rest my head. My heart, it gets no break at all from this delicious yearning, oh, my darling. Okay, this is all completely wrong. Not what I was planning. Okay.
They sound great. You should just read them all.
Okay, yeah, well, it could easily do that, but I got what I desired. I'm good now forever. I held the ruby treasure in my hands, my mouth, and in my arms. One afternoon, lost in my heart forever. The language of touch, there are also words. Beyond that, who can say how beautiful it was? I wanted to leave that sweet tangle and regain my words which had fallen into the mangle, crying. Don't let illusion's demons destroy this beloved world. Hide it in your mouth. Hold on to it for life with both your mortal hands. Guard it with your tied tongue. My life has your very name, my love. Okay, there you are. So I'm going to try to figure out what I was planning in this little self-published thing. A little change of spirit. Once I ate mussels in green-lipped shells from that little gone cafe. Old pleasures hang around my mind. Father, if I'd known how Eastern you were, my dear gone father, I'd have buried you with the ashes of catfish teeth that cloaked your grief in the faraway you yearned. This is for Jack. When you and I lived together poor and affectionately, you turned on my TV saying, maybe there will be a W.C. Fields movie on. And there was a one-time miracle. Honestly, never happened again. But there was Jerry Springer and some soap operas. The fingers you count love on are infinitely numbered, and laughter waits nearby. Every day of rain is the same day eternally. Eternal Maynard said, the smell of the pavement when it's wet in the rain. His words, the rain, it blows the new year in. You will be a spiral galaxy when you return. Okay. I met John Wieners once, and he did an amazing reading here, and I got to sit next to him. I think you were there, Neely, at the North Beach Pizza, right? And I sat right next to John Wieners. It was a beautiful experience. John Wieners in your poor man sweater, I sat beside you once. Sometimes I think I see you here in Poke Gulch, but I know you're in a where a lot kinder than now. There are no men in glass suits, as you wrote of San Francisco, where you hang out now, just those weeping angels with their naked curls. Yeah. Lost and found. How many blankets lost and how many found you've told me about, beloved young friend on abandoned ground. How much courage and so much wit, a new dispensation, and only you can find it where it's been thrown down. He tells me he's staying dry in this millennial storm. So I've got a lot of poems here, but they go by fast because they're short. So I've got a few more here on this thing. Yeah, I won't do titles. These are all very recent. The slender young blonde plays her silver flute down here now. Then you'll fly where nobody can harm you. She plays on her flute out here at lavender twilight time. Is the tribe of homeless dogs a new breed on this earth? I looked up to see one carried in the arms of someone in the costume of a bum, a most burnt charcoal tattered one. Be happy with candlelight and a world of holocausts. What's to be said about this day? Let it be their tongues that tell us what we are, a gathering of children there. I thought I was poor, then I saw those pictures. I didn't have to see any pictures. I walked outside. Wake up from dreams of rebel screaming. The end times never end. The wind came up and he tried to cover his white old head. Nothing seemed to do much good. The sun was brightening his white forelock as he sat wrapped in his old horse blanket. But now it sunk down behind the downtown buildings of this cold town. Sunning his swollen amputations below the knees. Nearby, that guy playing his bright trombone. This is when they had the whole city behind very black fences recently, if you were downtown. This APEC was in town anyway. A gaggle of cops in black with visored helmets pushed back went walking that way down Market Street, while the other way came one of the tribe of packs on back, going wherever he daily goes, and it feels like rain so soft and fragrant gray. This is for Larry Kearney. He recently, from around, some of you probably know him. He lives in Amsterdam now, but he was a San Francisco poet for a long time. And he sent me like a 200-page poem recently, and there was a quote that I won't try to read, but it was about roundhouses, and he had a little asterisk explaining circular locomotive sheds with center turntables, right? So it was from his poem Down the Road a piece and Amble. So I wrote this for him. Run to the roundhouse, Nellie, they can't corner you there, Bob Menefee used to say in a universe of far away. Where I was young and he was alive, you would have liked each other. He was in that war as almost just a boy, when you were taken into the movie house to see bombs fall through the celluloid. How did we get to where we are? I reached to touch your cosmos of vision. So far beyond the given, you are almost as illiterate as he was, if you get my flow. The spirit bends to touch our souls. When you know who you love, you just know. This is by way of Khalif Brown, who's my roommate, a young roommate. So it's mostly his words. I was in a body that wasn't mine, looking through its eyes. Somewhere in some other place and time, there were these squids that floated to flatten against the walls. They were vehicles people rode in, except even stranger than that, he said. Caught in this body that has given me such pleasure, whether pleasure or pain, please give me a little more of the same. I've been sick lately. My circus act consists of standing on this ragged edge. Before lights out in the galaxy, let me hear that little yarn just one more time. The teenage girl came into the Twilight Cafe, selling single stems of red roses and sprigs of white baby's breath to us in there. Thank you. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.